You've probably heard that olive oil is healthy,
Turns out that extra virgin olive oil may actually be good for you.
but here's the
Scientists say
problem.
it's packed.
Most people have absolutely no idea which olive oil is good for them. You walk into a supermarket, every bottle says extra virgin, premium, cold pressed, but some olive oils contain dramatically higher levels of the compounds that are linked to health benefits than others. In some cases, one bottle may have 10 times the beneficial polyphenol content of another. And unless it's independently tested, you'd never know which is which. I'm Dr. Conrad. At Seritas, we'll be testing them and we'll be making the results freely available. In this video, I'll show you science-backed olive oil, what we're actually testing for, and some of the literature that backs it up. And stay tuned to the end of the video because I'm going to give you 4 rules that you can use right now, either in the supermarket or online, to ensure that what you're getting is based on facts, not brand hype. Let's start with the fundamentals. When people think about olive oil, they usually think about healthy fats, specifically monounsaturated fat, oleic acid. But that story is known. What's more interesting is the story about polyphenols, because these compounds are where many of the potential health effects are found. So, what actually are polyphenols? They're naturally occurring bioactive compounds produced by the olive tree as part of its defense system. Think things like pathogens, environmental stress. When we consume them, many of these compounds appear to exert biological benefit on us. Now, in extra virgin olive oil, there are 4 major polyphenols that are worth knowing about. And these are oleocanthal, oleocean, oleuropein, and hydroxytyrosol. Each behaves slightly different biologically. Oleocanthal is probably the most famous. In laboratory studies, it acts as a non-selective COX inhibitor, which means that it affects the same inflammatory pathways targeted by drugs like ibuprofen. Researchers have even estimated that some high oleocanthal olive oils may produce COX inhibitory activity that's roughly comparable in vitro to about 1/10 of a standard ibuprofen dose. And interestingly, you can actually feel it. That peppery burning sensation at the back of your throat when you swallow a high polyphenol olive oil. That's strongly associated with the oleocanthal content. Oleocean is another important compound. It's been studied for antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects, including effects on adipocyte-related inflammatory signaling pathways like NF-kappa B. Oleuropein is a major polyphenol. It's found in olive trees, especially the leaves. This polyphenol has been studied for potential benefits at improving insulin sensitivity and pancreatic function. One small study showed those who supplemented olive tree leaf polyphenols experienced a 15% improvement in their insulin sensitivity and a 28% increase in pancreatic beta cell responsiveness. Full disclosure, this study was partly funded by a commercial partner who makes the supplement, but you should know that the funders had no role in the study design, data collection or analysis, or the decision to publish or prepare the manuscript. Hydroxytyrosol is particularly important because it forms part of the basis of the European Food Safety Authority's approved health claim that olive oil polyphenols contribute to the protection of blood lipids from oxidative stress. Some oils contain dramatically higher levels of these compounds than others, and most consumers have absolutely no idea which oils do. So if the science behind olive oil polyphenols is compelling, why isn't every olive oil high in them? Because polyphenol content varies massively, and a lot of brands don't actually tell you. The difference comes down to 5 major factors. First, olive variety. Some cultivars naturally contain far more polyphenols than others. Take Koroniki, the dominant Greek olive variety, which is famously rich in phenolic compounds. Second, harvest timing. Early harvest olives, picked while still green, produced oils dramatically higher in polyphenols. But there's a catch. The oil taste is peppery and bitter. Historically, many consumers may have preferred mild oils, so producers tend to harvest at a later date. And also, harvesting at a later date produces higher yield of the oil. Third, processing. Cold extraction and minimal processing help to preserve the polyphenols. Heat, oxygen exposure, and aggressive processing can destroy them. Storage. Polyphenols are highly sensitive to the things that we just mentioned. So if an oil is sitting for months in a clear bottle under supermarket lighting, it's degrading in real time. Finally, environmental factors, things like sunlight levels, water levels, and the climate. Here's the shocking part. Two bottles can be legally labeled as extra virgin olive oil, yet contain completely different levels of the polyphenols. One oil might contain only 50 milligrams of polyphenols per kilogram, and another could contain 1200 milligrams per kilogram. That's a 24-fold difference in active ingredient. And in most countries, neither bottle is required to tell you. This is the exact problem that we're trying to solve. Every olive oil we're reviewing is independently lab tested with high performance liquid chromatography. Keep in mind that testing methodology is important because certain methods may overestimate polyphenol content due to reduced specificity in testing. This matters because the olive oil polyphenols degrade through the supply chain, and the real-world product can differ meaningfully from the producer's best case sample. We publish the raw numbers, we publish the testing method, and we rank them accordingly. Here are the benchmarks that matter. The EFSA health claim threshold requires a specific 5 milligrams of hydroxytyrosol and its derivatives per 20 grams of olive oil for the product to carry the approved health claim that contributes to the protection of blood lipids from oxidative stress. We're testing total polyphenols, not just hydroxytyrosol. According to a study published in the Molecules Journal in 2021, oils above 500 milligram per kilogram are generally considered to be high phenolic. Above 1200 milligram per kilogram is considered exceptionally high, usually only achievable with deliberate early harvesting, specific cultivars, and the cold press production. Now, I want to be rigorous. This is a health channel, and we're not going to make claims that the evidence doesn't support. But keep in mind, it's also a YouTube video, and we can't review every single study because there's a lot of research in olive oil. So we'll take a look at a few key studies. First, blood lipids. A 2023 systematic review and meta-analysis by Zuppo et al. Looked at 10 randomized controlled trials investigating olive oil polyphenols and lipid markers. And overall, the pattern was fairly consistent. Higher polyphenol olive oils were associated with improved HDL cholesterol and reduced oxidation of LDL particles. Importantly, several studies suggested a dose-response relationship, which means the higher the polyphenol content, the greater the observed effect. And that dose-response signal actually matters. Nuance for the scientific rigor, the Zuppo et al. 2023 paper later formed a part of a 2025 EFSA application. They sought approval for a HDL cholesterol maintenance health claim, and the EFSA actually rejected the application. They concluded that there was not enough available evidence to establish a cause and effect relationship for HDL maintenance. However, nonetheless, these are promising early findings. Another landmark human trial was published back in 2026 by Covas MI et al. In the Annals of Internal Medicine journal. Participants were randomized to olive oils containing low, medium, or high levels of polyphenols. And again, researchers observed a remarkably linear relationship with effects on lipid profiles. As polyphenol content increased, oxidized LDL decreased, and the total cholesterol to HDL ratio improved. That's exactly the kind of pattern that we like to see in the research. Now, more recently, a 2024 randomized controlled trial, which was presented at the European Society of Cardiology Preventative Cardiology Conference, reported improvements in LDL cholesterol, HDL cholesterol, and triglycerides in hyperlipidemic patients consuming high phenolic extra virgin olive oil over 4 weeks. Interestingly, in the same study, researchers found that the higher phenolic extra virgin olive oil at lower doses appeared to be more effective in improving the lipid profile rather than the lower phenolic extra virgin olive oil in higher doses. Now, the cardiovascular outcome data is where things become especially interesting. The single biggest trial you need to know about is PREDIMED. 7,447 high cardiovascular risk participants. They were randomized to a Mediterranean diet, which was supplemented with extra virgin olive oil, or a Mediterranean diet supplemented with nuts, or a low-fat control diet. The olive oil group experienced about a 30% relative reduction in major cardiovascular events. These things included heart attack, stroke, cardiovascular death. That's a very large signal in nutritional research. But we need to acknowledge, however, these are relative risk reductions, not absolute risk, which would only be in the order of a couple of percent. I also want to be careful not to overstate what PREDIMED actually proved. It's a trial of an entire dietary pattern, not isolated olive oil polyphenols. And importantly, the original study later underwent reanalysis because of methodological issues involving randomization procedures. The key point, though, still stood. The corrected reanalysis supported the overall cardiovascular benefit. And in an observational analysis within the PREDIMED cohort, participants with the highest total polyphenol intake from all dietary sources combined had a 37% lower rate of all-cause mortality compared to those in the lowest intake group. So does this definitively prove that olive oil polyphenols are responsible for all of these benefits? No. Nutritional science is rarely that simple, but taken together, the mechanistic evidence, the biomarker studies, the dose-response relationships, and the clinical data all point in a fairly consistent direction. And this is exactly why I think independent testing matters. So let me give you 4 evidence-based rules for buying the highest potency oil possible. Rule 1, look for the harvest date, not the best before date. Best before dates can extend up to 2 years from bottling, by which point substantial polyphenol and oil degradation may have already occurred. To give you a rough idea, certain studies looked into phenolic content loss during usual storage and found an average loss of about 46% in 12 months. The harvest date tells you how fresh the oil actually is. Aim for an oil with the most recent harvest. In Australia, that generally means oils harvested between March and July of the current year. Rule 2. Look for polyphenol content and look for how it was tested for. If the polyphenol content is listed on the label, that's a good sign. If health quantities are what you're aiming for, pick the bottle with the highest concentration of the polyphenols. If an individual biophenol analysis has been performed, even better. Make note of how the testing has been performed. High-performance liquid chromatography is widely considered one of the most accurate measurements of assessment. This method has the ability to separate and identify individual phenolic compounds. Other testing methods exist, however, depending on the method used, they may over or underestimate the amount of polyphenols or biophenols. When you look at a polyphenol number on a label, the testing method matters almost as much as the number itself. Rule 3. Dark glass only. Polyphenols are degraded by light and oxygen. Research shows that storage in dark glass, particularly at lower temperatures, substantially prolongs the preservation of polyphenol content compared with clear containers. The evidence on this is very clear and very consistent. In one study examining how typical household conditions affect the chemical properties of olive oil, it was shown that light exposed oil lost its extra virgin rating in just 5 weeks and became intensely rancid by 8 weeks, unfit for consumption. In contrast, light-protected oil in the same study had only been downgraded to virgin status due to a K232 rise, which can be a marker of oxidation. And this leads on to Rule 4. Use it as soon as possible after opening. Once opened, oxidation begins immediately. For maximum polyphenol preservation and quality retention, aim to use the oil as soon as feasible. Typically, this might be within 1 to 3 months after opening, but I personally aim for the shorter end of that spectrum. The olive oil market in Australia is worth hundreds of millions of dollars annually. The scientific evidence for high polyphenol extra virgin olive oil by the standards of nutritional research is genuinely compelling, yet the majority of Australians consuming olive oil have absolutely no idea whether their product contains 80 milligrams per kilograms of polyphenols or 800. That information gap is what Seritas exists to close. We test, we publish, we rank. We've begun our rankings. Australia's first harvest 2026 season olive oil. These oils will be hand-selected premium, clean brands. They will only include the 2026 season, and they'll only include early harvest oils to maximize the chances of finding high polyphenol content. Full lab results are available on our website via the link in the description. If you found this useful, please subscribe. It'll really help the channel grow. We'll be applying the same rigor to multiple health foods and supplements over time. Thank you very much. See you in the next one.